اتلاقينا في الزمن الملام معكرة بعد الفرح اتلاقينا في الزمن الملام معكرة بعد الفرح شمس الحرونة بطل شمس الحرونة بطل هي خطانا وعمة جوان المحل هي خطانا وعمة جوان المحل نادينا في جبنا وحبينا عن الشروق داولنا للأفق البعيد نادينا في جبنا وحبينا عن الشروق داولنا للأفق البعيد إلا التعب إلا التعب إلا التعب تشرق شمس إلا التعب نلقى الفرح إلا التعب ينزل المطر إلا التعب يطلع بحر إلا التعب تشرق شمس إلا التعب نلقى الفرح ويعود ربيعك يا وطن 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 ويعود ربيعك يا وطن
Egypt, Sudan, two nations, their destinies tied together by the Nile Basin. The two peoples have always been tied by strong historical ties. The two peoples never had real serious boundaries to keep them apart. Egypt is the sole country where Sudanese go about exercising the same civil rights as do native Egyptians. A Sudanese enjoys the right of entry into Egypt without prior visa requirements. He also has the right to work without having to obtain the necessary work permit. It has always been like this, no matter what the form of government, no matter what the regime, and no matter what the political, social, or economic status. There is hardly a Sudanese family who is not tied or connected to, in some way or the other, with an Egyptian. After the military coup of June 1989, Egypt witnessed a sudden sharp surge upwards of Sudanese residing or trying to settle in the country. Different people from different backgrounds with different goals. These included intellectuals and the usual galaxy of what has become known as the brains of society. The journalists, the writers, the artists, the doctors, the engineers, and the university professors. But these also included the average Sudanese layman. This film depends on the testimony of those who fled from the regime of June 1989, those currently residing in Cairo, awaiting the possibility of returning home, back to Sudan.
I would like to address myself to the present situation in the Sudan, present tragic situation in the Sudan, which has imposed itself since June 1989, when a military coup overtook the democratic system, banned the constitution, all political parties, trade unions, organizations, and put all leaders of trade unions, party members in prison, confiscated the press, declared a state of emergency, curfew, which is in effect for 4 years now. There is still a curfew. Now it's from midnight. For 4 years completely. And the Sudan is governed today by military decrees passed by what is called the Revolutionary Council for Salvation, which is a 15-man military council. They have power to make laws. They have power to detain people, search houses, follow people, prevent people from travel, prevent them from movement within the country, confiscate your property, dismiss you from service for no reason at all. And the problem is you cannot go to the courts. Even the independence of the judiciary is now completely non-existent. You cannot go to the courts to complain that you've been dismissed or detained or tortured or whatever. The judiciary itself, the courts, are now being used as a tool of the regime.
The 30th of June 1989 was a black day in the history of modern Sudan. On that day, a military junta took over. They were actually sponsored by the Islamic National Front. And from that day on, started perhaps the worst era in modern Sudan history. They called themselves the National Salvation Revolution or something of the sort. But if you really try to find out what is going on in the Sudan after 4 years of the rule, you will find that in actual fact they salvaged nothing, but to the contrary, they have ruined almost everything. As for me, as a journalist, I stopped being a journalist on that day because they stopped all the papers which were published then. They illegalized all activities, including parties, etc. And 2 months later, I was detained in Cobra prison with hundreds of other Sudanese leaders, political leaders, trade union leaders, and others. I stayed in Cobra for about 3 or 4 months. Then we were taken to a far place in Western Sudan, in a prison, in a very notorious prison called Shala prison, where it is well known to Sudanese people that it's a very nasty place. Care is almost nil. That's, I mean, medical care. The water is very rotten, and the whole situation is very bad. Well, it's a kind of punishment to those who are supposed to be bad boys, and that's what was done to us. We were kept with my friends. We were about 70 of us. We were kept in Shala prison until May 1991, and as a result of international pressure, we were released. I was the last to be released, and that was in May 1991. After I left prison, I came back to my hometown in Omdurman, and I tried to do some business because I was no longer a journalist. It was impossible for me to practice my own profession, in which I've been working for about 40 years. So I had to try to earn my living through other means, but frankly speaking, I failed. I tried to do some political work. That's something against what was going on. That's an opposition work, but it was very difficult for me because I was tailed day and night by police agents. So at last I decided to leave the Sudan, and I thought of Egypt the best place for me to go to, as I know that the relation between the two people is very intimate and dear. I was not allowed to leave the Sudan through legal means, so I had to resort to illegal means. I had to come to Egypt on the back of a camel, and that was my first experience to be on the back of a camel for 4 or 5 days. It was really awful. It was a very hard experience. I almost felt I was dying more than once, and I crossed the desert on a camel.
Immediately after the coup, I was detained together with other colleagues. We were detained in Omdurman prison, a place that is no good for nothing. There were no utilities. In fact, the place was full of different types of insects, including scorpions, mosquitoes, flies, and every type of insect you can think about. The ceiling was practically falling on us. Anyhow, after almost 2 months, we were released without being tried or interrogated. In fact, it was only a release from small prison to a large prison. A condition of our release was to sign a paper. In fact, we were forced to sign a paper that says we should not leave Khartoum or Sudan without the permission of security authorities in Khartoum.
Most of the Sudanese residing in Egypt are in fact jobless and depend for their livelihood on transferences from family members or friends who are scattered all over the globe. These people are subsisting under the well-known Sudanese system of interdependency. It is the duty of those who have to temporarily help those who have not. They share everything, their dwellings, the meager funds available through family and friends, even daily newspapers. Others roam the streets of Cairo. They peddle products. They come from all the corners of Sudan. What unifies them is the fact that they are all here in Egypt. And still others considered this as one transit stop in their search for a better and more secure life. Maybe northwards, maybe eastwards, but mostly westwards. The search was for stability and inward peace.
ومن المسائل الغريبة جدا إنه السودانيين دلوقتي ولأول مرة بعد الانقلاب يتوجدوا في أي مكان في الدنيا. يعني مثلا في سودانيين في اليابان ومقدمين لجوء سياسي وقاعدين في اليابان، وأنا عندي صلة بهم شخصية وفي سودانيين في بانكوك، وغير السودانيين في كندا وفي استراليا وفي أمريكا وفي مناطق كثيرة جدا. يعني يمكن لأول مرة السودانيين يمشوا لمنطقة الفار ايست وكده فمسألة معالجة قضية النازحين بالنسبة لكل السودانيين اللي هو نحن نفسنا هسه موجودين في مصر نعتبر نفسنا نازحين، لأنه أسباب النزوح إلى مصر مشكلة اقتصادية ولا سياسية، ويمكن بتنطبق علينا نحن الاثنين. الظروف الاقتصادية فصلنا من عملنا عدد كبير، الظروف السياسية مطاردين من كمان من الحكومة الموجودة في الخرطوم. فبالتالي عودة كل المواطنين للسودان وحل مشكلة النازحين أصلا لا يمكن تتحقق في ظل الحكومة الموجودة الآن في السودان.
The main reasons that made me to come here to Cairo, as I said, just passing through. At the moment I'm here staying in a hotel, or what you call it, an inn. All my thoughts and my feelings are back home. Why? Because I lost everything. I would say even my friends, the company I had back home, it's not here. Well, I would say the Egyptians are very well. They welcomed us. We have very good treatment. If you compare it with what you had back home, it's different. This to me doesn't mean that I'm living in a world which is far away. Well, Egypt and Sudan are in one boundary. I am here now thinking of traveling to to Libya, where I would probably find a job or work again. to support my friends and family back home. This is one thing. The other thing I would like to speak about back home in Sudan, I even lost the company of my intimate friends whom I always used to meet and experience my daily activities. Such people are not back home at the moment.
مشيتني الأسرة بعد ما تم فصلي من وظيفتي الحكومية. تم فصلي من وظيفتي الحكومية وجدت جواب بيستغنى عن الخدمة. ببحث في عمل في السودان، ببحث في عمل في مدينة بور السودان، فشلت وبكل ده شعرت بالضيق خانق. مش كده، حتى اللي حوالين، حتى الأسرة ذاتها شعرت بالضيق. الأسرة وكانت بتشعر بأنه وجودي فيه خطر على حياتي، وهي دفعتني للهجرة. يعني هي اللي كانت بشكل أو بآخر بتشوف أنه الهجرة قد تضمن حياتي على الأقل وأنا أطلع. ولا كان معروف ذاته أنه أنت حتجد شنو في الهجرة، والله الأفق فيها شنو، ما كان ولا كانت الأسرة ذاتها بتسأل. يعني بقدر ما كانت بتسأل من أنه أنت تطلع وتبعد من الحصار وتبعد من المطاردة. الواحد دسع في القاهرة محطة اعتبار بيبحث لظروف أحسن، لشكل أحسن، متوحد. يعني نقول الواحد بالسوداني وحلان في القاهرة، ما في الأفق مقفول قدامه، تأشيرات الدول الأوروبية مش موجودة، الدول العربية مقفولة.
In Egypt, the Sudanese cannot be considered refugees. They cannot be categorized as in political asylum either. They receive no aid from any international organization. They live constantly under the threat of passport expiration. If they approach their embassies for renewal, they run the risk of forced deportation.
The role of the armed forces, not only in Sudan, but anywhere, is to protect the border and the constitutions, but not to execute a coup, not to work against the benefit of the people. And this is a very simple role. It is a very basic role. And the armed forces as an institution is supposed to be a professional institution. And because of this, I remember during the April Revolution, 1985, I was working in the Armed Forces headquarters in the operation branch. During that time, the officers coordinated with the Sudanese people generally, with the trade unions, with the political parties, to throw the dictator regime. So we as national officers who work against a dictator regime, hoping for a democratic regime, and again in 1989, the National Islamic Front executed a coup. And I think it was worse than the regime of Nimeri. And because we are the officers who were calling for democracy, we were one of the officers who kicked or fired out of the armed forces. And after just 3 months, I was jailed for 18 months in Koba prison, and then Kasala prison, and then what the Sudanese people call ghost houses. Then after this, I escaped my way up to here.
فار منهم شالوني رفعوني في المروحة، ربطوا أرجلي كانت فوق وراسي كانت تحت على الواطة، وبدوا شغلوا المروحة. بديت ألف وأضرب في الحيطة وهم كانوا بيضربوا فيني بأرجلهم. بعد ذاك دخلت في حالة إغماء، ما كنت شاعر بنفسي. قام واحد فيهم طلع فوق، أظن فك رجولي وضربت الواطة براسي، يعني ده سبب إنه ارتد وعي تاني. بعد ذاك شالوني، كنت رقدوني في سرير وبرضو ادوني حقنة بالوريد، وبدأ بعد ذاك الضرب بالصوت وبعصايا. مرحلة المنطقة تغير، الزول اللي بيساعدني جا زول تاني وطلب من واحد قال له يجيب عدة الشغل، مشى جا بعد 5 دقائق كان جايب له شوال فيه زردية وكماشة وفيه كاوية بتاعت كهرباء وفيه صوت وفيه آلات حادة وسلوك ومسامير. فعاين للزول اللي جابه وقال له انت غبي، فضربني كف وقال له دير سياسيين. قال له الحيوان ده تخرشه بالحديدة دي، بكرة جمعية حقوق الحيوان في لندن تقول في حيوان في السودان ناس الأمن عذبوه.
كنا 23 معتقل من مناطق مختلفة، من ألوان فكرية مختلفة، من اتجاهات سياسية مختلفة، من وظائف مختلفة، ومن عمق اجتماعي مختلف. فينا الأطباء، المحامين، مدراء إدارات، وكلاء وزارات. أصغرنا 30 سنة وأكبرنا 72 سنة. جمعنا 23 معتقل في غرفة مساحتها 2 في 3 سنتيمتر، أي المساحة الكلية بتاعتها 6 أمتار، على أساس أنه نمارس حياة كاملة في هذه الغرفة. وطبيعي يعني السودان معروف يعني حرارة الجو وحرارة الطقس، فكان الإشكال الأول اللي جابهنا بعد 5 دقائق هي التأقلم مع هذه الغرفة الضيقة والجو الحار. في واحد من الشيوخ، وده منظر مؤثر جدا، اكتشف أنه الباب فيه ثقب، فابتدى يضع مناخيره على ثقب الباب ويجر الهواء، وابتدينا نتتالى نحن 23 معتقل عشان يعني نجر هواء من خارج الغرفة اللي هو داخل في المكان القبيح بين الأشباح، نتقاسم يعني الهواء في الطقس. يعني لما طلبنا نصلي قالوا لنا انه ربنا مش موجود هنا، يعني ده محل ما فيه والله اطلاقا، يعني علما بان الله سبحانه وتعالى موجود في كل مكان.
At the time of my arrest, there was a likely general strike by professionals, including university staff. At that date, on the 30th of June, I was arrested by 2 police officers outside the main gate of the university. They took me to the security headquarters in Khartoum. I was blindfolded and taken in a car to a place which I couldn't identify at the time. On the way and after my arrival, I was exposed to very violent treatment. I was interrogated by a group of army officers and professionals, surprisingly, who belong to the National Islamic government. They wanted to know something about a meeting of the executive committee of the staff union, of which I was not a member. They wanted to know the places of certain persons of whom I had no idea. I was beaten, flogged, kicked, and all the time exposed to very harsh treatment. I was taken to a very filthy bathroom, 1 by 1.6 meters in area, which they kept very filthy and wet all the time. I was deprived of sleep by people insulting and knocking at the door every 10 or 15 minutes. I was exposed at one time to a cold shower in the open, plus flogging. Then I was taken to another bathroom where there were other professionals, again in a very small area, and the same was repeated all through for 12 days. During those 12 days, a visitor came, Colonel Bakri Hassan Saleh, the head of the security organization and member of the ruling junta. He told me I was being punished for opposing the regime and for teaching the Darwinian theory of evolution in the university.
الاسم ده يعني ينسب للداشور وانا كيف بعد شويه قال امه غير محمد النبي علي بس محل وجده تحتيها
انتقلت الأسرة السودانية بكل عاداتها وتقاليدها إلى القاهرة، وأصبحنا نعيش الجو السوداني في القاهرة، وكثيرا ما نلتقي وكثيرا ما نعيش في مشاركة وجدانية وفي نوع من التقاسم المشترك لكل مستجدات الحياة، في ساعات المرض وفي ساعات الوفاة وفي ساعات الفرح، كلنا نعيش مع بعض نوع من المشاركة الوجدانية العميقة ونوع من التكافل بصورة مسهلة.
I've been in Cairo since August 1991. All artists in the Sudan are living under tremendous pressure. They can't practice their art, whether they're poets, writers, or filmmakers. And most of these people, because of the nature of the Sudan itself, have found themselves working with the government. Because of the government's new policies towards the arts, most of these people have been actually sacked. They lost their jobs. The press has been banned. All publications are heavily censored. And so, just even in order to make a living, I mean, those people, most of them, or most of those who were able to immigrate, have left the country. Which I think is very tragic, because the artist, I mean, his homeland, his home, where he practices his art, I mean, it's as if you are a tree and you have been uprooted.
أنا سلمت قلبي وقال أمين عليه تحداني ونساني ونسى إخلاصي ليه. So many musicians, numerous, I can't now say what's the number for sure, are scattered over the world, leaving their country because they are denied this activity with the so-called Islamic laws. And according to the curfew, which is imposed on Khartoum since 1989, till now, so many singers are flogged and stopped and detained and sometimes beaten very hard for breaking the law.
And I myself, being a Sudanese, at the same time the Secretary General of the Arab Lawyers Union, who is specialized in monitoring the violation of human rights in the area, it was a good chance for me to concentrate a little bit on Sudan because it's my country. So I think I was the first who started monitoring the status of human rights inside Sudan from the first few days after the coup d'etat. Besides the Sudanese women and men of the north, the Sudanese of the south and the west paid much of their dignity, of their human rights, because of these negative attitudes from the government of NIF in Khartoum and its affiliates in the different provinces. Tribal cleansing that took place in Nuba Mountains is vast, excessive, and it's shameful, really shameful. And what had took place also in the south, in the aftermath of the battles that took place last September in Equatoria and other areas in the south, is also sad.
Nuba people of southern Kordofan province, who I belong to, are facing such oppression which never happened in the history of mankind. After 1989, when al-Bashir took over the power, he declared his plan of ethnic cleansing, which means the termination of this origin. He was using an excuse saying that he is fighting these people because they are not Muslims. But the fact is that most of the people who were killed and are still being killed in the Nuba Mountains are mostly the Muslims. For example, I came from a Muslim family, and many of my people are so particular about Islam. But they were the first to be terminated. My people, the Nuba are killing the Arabs, and the Arabs are killing the Nuba. Who should I feel sorry for? For my people who are fighting with al-Bashir by force, or for my people who are being killed by their own brothers? This is a very dirty war. This is a real dirty war. It has to stop.
When the war escalated in the south and the Nuba Mountains, the population started to move first to Khartoum with the hope of getting security there. But as from 1989, when the military government took over, the security problem started to escalate, and a lot of other problems like hunger escalated, and they couldn't get the services in Khartoum. And they were also couldn't get the security they expected in Khartoum. So they moved down to Egypt and other neighboring countries with the hope to get security. The community which moved to Egypt is very large, and they are facing a lot of problems, accommodation problems, health problems, and so many other problems.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
The church tries to help as much as it can, providing room for classes, but the main problem will always remain funding. How can these people possibly cope with the everyday task of housing students, providing teachers, feeding children hungry for food, for education, for hope? Children that are now bred away from their own homeland, from Sudan.
We as teachers in this school, we realize the children having a lot of problems. They have cultural problems, they have political problems, they have religious problems from their country. And as such, it is very difficult for them to fit so freely in this society. And partly we are trying our level best, trying to embark our effort on how to let the children to forget of the war they experience. Because these children, they have realized, they have seen how most of the people are being killed, they have seen most of their parents being tortured, they have seen most of the centers being closed, they have seen the restriction put on them in the schools, especially to force them to learn something which they don't like. This is simply of the religion which is being forced on them. And at the same time, the educational system which is being changed from English to Arabic, and the closing down of the many centers in the southern Sudan, this led these children to have difficulties in continuing their education. And besides that, we also have a women group that's called St. Bakita. These groups, they come together as one family. So far, we have about 50 ladies who are trying their level best, despite all the difficulties, is to come up with something at least, not only to sit, but try to do something in order that they could be able to bring up the children. Because that is the only way they can afford to buy food for their children. That is the only way they could afford to buy clothes for their children. And that is the only way they could afford to pay the house rent.
فالحرب ده جاب لنا مشاكل الواحد كان ما بيتمناه يعني احنا يعني ما بقينا كسودانيين يعني واحد كده بيشعر كانوا انت ما من نفس البلد فانا بشوف حكومه فعلا ما عمل اي حاجه كويس بالذات حكومه بتاع عمر بشير هو بيتكلم في الوحده لكن ما فيش وحده خالص هو بيكون اصعب حكومه اللي جا في السودان لانه يعني ما بيحترم حقوق الانسان يعني الانسان في السودان ما حاجه يعني الانسان تلقاه بيعملوا حاجات اللي ما بيحصل في العالم كله لأن تشوف بدقوا ناس ويعملوا حاجات كاب يعني نسوان اللي نزلوا من جنوب ولا نزلوا من غرب ولا نزلوا من شرق ناس بيعملوا مراسي عشان يقدروا يربوا عيالهم لكن بيمسكون بخطوف في السجن السجن كله بقى مليان بنسوان عيال بيموتوا في السجن ونسوان تعبانين نسوان من الشرق اللي بيعملوا شاي تلقى مرة يعمل شاي يجي يدقوه ويكبوا شاي برا ويشيلوا عفش ده كله فيعني واحد كده يعني ما بيقول سيانا عندي حياة كويس في السودان حياة كله تعبان يعني هنا جا رحلونا ودونا جبل أولياء كسروا بيوت بتاعنا جا بجروس وجا جيش دقانا كله مشتتوا محل فأنا بشوف يعني أريد لو كان في حكومة كده بيجي واحدنا ويشيل حكومة بتاع عمر ده لأن عمر ما بشوف في حق بتاع مرة حتى في طفل صغير ما بشوف طفل صغير وما بشوف مرة طبعا لما مرة وجنا مع أول حاجة في العالم يعني لما جنا ما يكون مرتاح وما يكون مرتاح في معنى عشان زول يقعد في السلطة فأنا بشوف يعني نتمنى يكون في حكومة يجي ويهدنا ويجي لما نقول لأن هنا بقينا مشتتين في العالم.
المستقبل شبه مجهول. الواحد خارج بلده بدون إرادته بدون ما عنده مأوى يعني حقيقي وبالتالي أهدافه ذاتها ما بتكون محددة بشكل واضح لأنه يعني ما في استقرار ذهني في البداية فبالتالي ما بكون في تفكير للمستقبل لذلك يعني الفترة دي أو المستقبل بالنسبة لي وبالنسبة لأي شاب تاني سوداني هو شبه المظلم يعني.
In the Sudan Human Rights Organization are not working on the political side. We're working on the human rights side and we are trying to expose the regime in the Sudan for what it is, to expose human rights violations, to help the victims and to tell the world what is happening in the Sudan.
What we see now in Sudan is a totalitarian project. A totalitarian project which is more sinister and more threatening because it is engaged into and promoted in the name of religion. And the Sudanese are religious people, and therefore they are easily misled, manipulated through their religious convictions. All totalitarian projects are bound to fail, and of that I'm absolutely convinced. I have no doubt whatsoever in my mind that this regime, which is seeking to establish a totalitarian state in the name of Islam, is bound to fail. What I am concerned with, and I'm deeply concerned with and saddened by, is the human cost of the failure of this totalitarian Islamic project in the Sudan.
The home you like to go back?
Well, a democratic Sudan, a free Sudan, a Sudan in which the Sudanese are united and equal, and a Sudan which they deserve.
I hope that when we go back, we make use of the different experiences that we had since the independence, and I hope that during the future or for the future, we should focus on the human being, Sudanese people.
I'm looking for the new Sudan. Sudan without jail. Sudan without ghost houses. I'm looking for a free Sudan. And I think this is the hope of all the Sudanese. It is not easy, but it is not difficult too. Because I think the Sudanese people have got the experience. When I say Sudanese people, the civilians and the military men, they have got the experience to retain back the democracy and their freedom. And I'm sure they are going to do it for the third time.
I look forward to go back to my country where democracy will prevail, where liberties will be in abundance, where there will be a democratic, real democratic life, where people can say their opinion and live freely.
We had laid very formidable basis for the new Sudan. We know it would not be a joke. It would be difficult because the ruins that will be left by the NIF government are tremendous. The destruction is tremendous.
أتمنى أنه نرجع قريب يعني بس.
ليه تو السودان لكن؟
ليه؟ السودان الزمان أو السودان الحديث جدا اللي هو ما فيه حكم عسكري وما فيه انت بتخط راسك عشان تنوم بالليل بتفتكر في اي لحظه ممكن ترفع راسك تلقى العساكر مدقيه حولك حصلت كتير جدا يعني احنا واحد بيكون نايم من نص الليل بيفتح عيونه على 4-5 عساكر حوله يعني من غير حتى ما يدوا انذار ولا يكلموا ولا أتمنى أن زول يرجع ومطمئن ونايم لحد الصبح من غير ما يصحوا نص الليل يعني بيه.